Hello, everyone. I am really excited to bring in our guest today. Her name is Angelique, and I worked with her for a while with her dog, Oliver. And one of the reasons I'm really excited to have her on is because her story is such a difference from our other guest, Christy, and her dog, Casey. Because when Casey came home, things were fairly easy. Not to say that there wasn't an adjustment that needed, but it wasn't as fragile or as complicated as Angelique's story. So I'm really excited for her to share that with you and get the real picture of what it looks like to have a hard dog you are not expecting and put in the work every single day with them for better or for worse. And yeah, I think you're gonna love her. So we will bring her in. Angelique, welcome to the show.
Hi,
Welcome.
Angelique.
Thanks for
Hi.
having me, everyone.
Absolutely. Why don't you start by just telling us from the very beginning what made you want to reach out to Kindness Ranch looking for a research beagle to bring home?
I am not I think I first saw, a number of beagles that were adoptable on a website. We were looking for ones that were available, and we had started looking through, I think, the Colorado Beagle, Alliance, I think it's called, and they basically just had links to a number of beagles that were available around the country, and I started noticing that several of them were, all located in the same area. So I started looking into, well, why are they all in the same area? And I had heard of the Beagle Freedom Project and I had been donating to them for years, but there's other organizations that also, work with these, former research beagles. And that's how I came across Kindness Ranch. And so I found a number of them that were available that, we were interested in. And so we made arrangements to drive up there. We're in Denver, so drive up and spend the night and get to know some of the dogs.
Yeah, amazing. And how was that for you?
It was a little bit of a last minute plan, and it was a little overwhelming because there's a lot of dogs that were there and, they're all running around together and stuff. And so you're trying to see if you have a connection with a dog, because you're making a big commitment.
Mhm.
But you're making that decision in a pretty short period of time. And they're, all sweet and they're all running around and you're trying to figure out like what's the best fit for you and things like that. At the time, I had a very elderly cat at home. So I was looking for, anyone that didn't seem like they would be maybe aggressive towards an animal that was like, slower or, a little bit more reserved.
Mhm.
And we had ways to separate them in the house, so I wasn't worried about them coming in contact all the time, but I did want to look for, dogs that could potentially be around cats and things like that.
Mhm.
And what's great is because you guys also have cats on the ranch, like the handlers will sometimes like bring the dogs on the walk, like near where the cat enclosure is. And so they can kind of start to gather some information about how the dogs respond. So that was really helpful to kind of see that happen too. And, when we first arrived and pulled into the parking lot, uh, Oliver, who was called Butters at the time, was the only one in the outside enclosure. And so I kind of approached the fence a little bit and he shrunk away, but I greeted him quietly. And then we went inside to see all the dogs in the common area. And he kind of came around through, I guess they have a dog door that allows them into a section of enclosure, right? So he came around on his own. And right away, the handler said, "Oh," they called him Butters at the time. "That's Butters. He doesn't really let anyone touch him." And he seemed curious but nervous, right? So he's there, he's trying to like kind of get a sense of us, but keeping his distance. And at one point, he just jumped up on the couch next to me and let me pet him. And they were so surprised. They actually asked if they could take a picture. They were like, "Oh, he doesn't let anyone touch him." He was so, it was just out of the ordinary for his behavior. So that was kind of the thing that stuck in my mind. So that happened in the first greeting. And like I said, spent the night and decided the next day what to do. But like that first, like the fact that he just kind of came out of his shell momentarily and that first greeting just kind of stuck with me. And that's when I was like, I think he's the one for me.
Hmm. I
As
love
Lori
that.
says, the dogs adopt you. They
Yeah, they
do.
do.
It's true. The dogs choose you. I fundamentally believe that. And I think everyone does when I say it to them.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
eventually say, yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. So, Angelique, you left with Butters and you also left with someone else.
So I was with my husband, and he was concerned that because he was very fearful dog at the time, and my husband's taller, he's around 6 feet, and um, I think some of the more scared dogs just tend to do better with people of smaller stature and like women because we're smaller stature and softer, softer voice and things like that. And so he was really concerned that he might not be able to bond with him. And got along really well with another dog that was there, Hunter, who was much more outgoing and just showed a lot more like what we would think of as like classic beagle behavior, right? Like, and we had had
Mhm.
a beagle before that we had lost, and that's why we were kind of looking for another dog. And so I think he just got more attached and bonded more with him initially because he just had that more outgoing kind of beagle attitude. So
Mhm.
at the time we decided, which was not something I was expecting at all, but decided to try, going with both of them.
Mhm.
But they from the beginning, it was clear that they were going to have different kinds of challenges, right? So, like, they each had their own thing going on, but the types of challenges that they were going to face were gonna be different just based on their kind of personality profiles.
Mhm.
So, Angelique, I mean, you're very brave, both of you, to say
Mhm.
you're going to take two. That's amazing. So, skip to when you got home. What did that look like with the two of them? Had you already seen them a little bit together because they were all there? What did it look like? Because they're almost being introduced to each other at your own home.
So, I'm gonna keep calling him Oliver because that's how I renamed him, but it was Butters at
Mhm.
the time he was at the ranch.
Sure.
He had some challenges around like claustrophobia. I think he couldn't be enclosed in one of the like I think of them as almost like small horse stalls, right? Like they have their own little private space and then they have the little dog door and do a little paddock outside. And I think even that, the handlers had noticed was, like, too confining for him. So they were kind of just letting him exist in the common space, and he'd sleep on the couch at night and things like that. They were just trying to accommodate his fearfulness. And so I think that actually put him in contact with the other dogs in that, house more often because he was always kind of in the general space. So he had definitely had interactions with Hunter, like, they were not, like, unknown to each other.
Mhm.
When we had a detached garage at this house, so when we first got, back home, coming out of the garage is just, like, our enclosed little backyard area, and there's, maybe 8 steps up the back porch into the back door, and, Hunter ran right up them. I mean, he was just, like, very curious, running around trying to smell everything and explore everything. Oliver was really just kind of following Hunter. Like, he was very fearful and very fearful of people. So a lot of what made him feel comfortable was, like, seeing another dog take the lead. And you could tell he'd, like, never gone upstairs before because even to this day, he does it really awkwardly. But at the time, he only kind of could follow what he saw the other dog do. So he was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I could go up these," and he sort of just, scrambled up them. Um and Hunter was comfortable being kenneled, so we basically made 2 spots next to each other, in the house, like, in this back room of our house where we could kind of keep them, um, like, enclosed, like, to one section of the house so that we could slowly introduce them and, get them potty trained and all the different things they had to do, but, Hunter was a little easier in the sense that he was really comfortable in his kennel. He had no trouble with it at all. And then Oliver just kinda stayed in the same room as the kennel and had a little bed in there and things like that. But, yeah, it was interesting to watch the 2 of them at first because, I feel like, Oliver just really wouldn't have known what to do with himself if there wasn't another
Mhm.
dog sort of acting dog-like in his presence.
Mhm. Mhm. So at what point do you feel like things shifted from what was happening into a relationship that wasn't normal for 2 dogs?
So, in the first week or so it was just really trying to kind of establish a little bit of routine, right? Like, this is when we eat, this is when we go outside, this is what a house looks like, this is what the TV sounds like, this is what, the kitchen noises sound like, just really basic stuff. And they were doing fine together, and going outside in the yard and pottying and things like that. What I started to notice happening, um, and it was really subtle at first because Oliver wasn't making a lot of big movements. But as he started to become more comfortable, he wanted to get more, he would get like excited energy and he wanted to do like zoomies in the backyard or something like that. And I noticed Hunter starting to sort of like police that a little bit, um,
Mm,
where you could tell he became uncomfortable with like the hyper energy of the other dog in the household. And so, we noticed a couple times where he kind of like went for Oliver and we were like, "Oh, we broke it up," just verbally saying, "No, don't do that." And we were able to like kind of manage it. But then it started to escalate and it caused a fight with them. So, we were in contact with um our contact at the ranch and getting advice. And that's actually how we got introduced to Chelsey because just discussing like behaviorally, what can we do? Because, like, clearly it's causing anxiety, and we didn't want it to continue to shut down Oliver's progress because he was so shy and so, fearful that for him to start to get a little zoomies, to get a little comfortable, to see a couple tail wags and things like that, we were really worried about, like, didn't want to see that um, shut back down because, they weren't getting along together. And
mhm,
ultimately, it just, I think it was a bad fit for the 2 of them because, Hunter really felt I think he had experienced maybe some, like, altercations in the past and things like that, and you could tell he felt maybe unsafe with hyper excitedness in other dogs, and he felt like he had to shut it down. And Oliver is
mm,
so submissive and scared that to have a dog, like, stopping him from excitement was creating more anxiety for him too and, like, kind of, like, shutting him down a little bit. So we had to work with our, contact at the ranch, and we talked to Chelsey and things like that and decided, like, they were probably not a good long-term fit, because it was also creating a lot of stress in us to try to manage, like, we didn't wanna see another, like, conflict break out between them, we were, like, being hyper vigilant, which we didn't think was good for them to acclimate to either, right?
mhm. Angelique, what decision did you finally come to, and how difficult was that for you?
We really struggled with it. It was really hard. The decision became a little more time sensitive because the ranch informed us that Hunter had an opportunity to be transported to another like placement opportunity for him basically, and so we had to choose quickly, and just evaluating what was going on in the home, what we would have to do in terms of like modifying their contact with each other to keep everybody safe and calm and things like that, and like what we felt equipped to do. It all kind of came together and we were like, oh, okay, this is creating a lot of stress. We did not feel like trained or equipped to deal with it if they really weren't getting along. And we were kind of concerned about like really both their development if we were having to like, do so many things to separate them or regulate things and stuff like that. And then that
Mhm,
opportunity of like, oh, he has a placement opportunity that could be really good for him. So that was
mhm,
kind of the thing that pushed us to decide like it was okay if Hunter went back and we just kept Oliver. But it was really
mhm.
hard. 'Cause we didn't wanna
Yeah,
feel like we were giving up on him, and we definitely knew that, like, the behavioral stuff, it was not his fault. It was his way of dealing with what felt safe for him, right?
mhm. Well, I think that's amazing, and I do I wanna add to that, that I think it's incredible that you guys made such a hard decision and a thoughtful decision, and one that put both dogs' interests, at the forefront, and I think that's what a lot of and that's what the foster period is, or whatever the time period is for the Beagle Alliance, at least, because we do foster to adopt because we don't have a facility, and so I think that you're a perfect example of putting the dog's needs first. And a lot of people look at that as a failure or that they've done something wrong. But the simple fact is that it's not always a match. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with what the people did. And it doesn't mean that the dog is bad. It's just not the right fit at that moment in time. And I'm really happy to say that Hunter, who is now called Samson, is living the dream in Canada with like two boys who adore him and his mama. And so, maybe he was meant to be there so Oliver could sort of learn the ropes a little bit. And then
Mhm.
he moved on to his destiny and where he needed to be. So I just really appreciate that you made the decision, a hard decision, a heartbreaking decision sometimes that was best for the
Absolutely.
dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It was really hard at the time, but the one piece that feel like we were kind of fortunate in terms of the timing is that there did feel like there was a good path for Hunter. We weren't just giving up on him and sending him back. There was like an opportunity
Mhm.
there that we felt good about. And also the like lack of ability for them to get along peacefully was showing up really quickly. So if we had had them for 6 months and then this happened, we would have possibly made some different decisions because like the attachment would have been greater, the assimilation into the household and all that other stuff would have been much longer. And so the fact that it just showed up for us early was actually like kind of a blessing because we could figure out what to do, I think, a little more
Mhm.
quickly.
It's a perfect example of how important and how um, amazing environment plays a
Mhm.
role in all of these dogs. They come out of a research facility where it's constant activity and noise. And then we try as hard as we can to provide them a home-like experience at Kindness Ranch. But as you said yourself, there's dogs running all over the place. And when these dogs make it into a home and it's their first chance at like real decompression and they have a chance to breathe, then their real instinctual personalities start to
Mhm.
display themselves. And I'm proud that you found such support in the team here in finding solutions and not excuses. And it's really easy for people to talk themselves out of allowing a dog to go someplace else and find success. And I'm thrilled that you had the support you needed and the confidence to make the decision that you did, because it sounds like it's a win-win on both sides.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. Like Oliver has blossomed so much since then, and hearing like Hunter has this like wonderful home, like it worked out beautifully, and it was really facilitated by the people at the ranch. It was really supportive and really helpful. It mattered a lot to us.
It's an important place to be because, even though you adopt or people adopt, it's just important to know that you're not adopting a dog and then never hearing from or able to contact an organization and say, "Look, I need help. Look, I need this." It could be a year later, could be a week later, but I think that's really important. And, John, to hear that Kindness Ranch always does that is amazing. We like to be there for our adopters as well. And I love that this story turned itself around and ended up coming back to the fact that we all played a part in,
Yeah.
this dog's life. It just goes to show you how everyone has their role and the dog ends up where they need to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. Angelique, so you are with Oliver now. Hunter is back at the ranch on his way up to Canada. We're expecting him to blossom immediately and feel safe and, not feel bullied, if that's the word we're going to use. What actually happened?
So from he started what would ultimately become about 5 months of a decompression period. And I mean, he's has no bad habits. Like he's a very sweet, very like kind of neutral dog. He doesn't do anything destructive. Like he's really good. but he slept like over 20 hours a day. And he basically like got out of his bed to eat and go on like potty breaks. And that was it. He just wanted to go back to his bed. And we were like reaching out to Chelsey and just like, is he sick? What do we do? And she was really instrumental in like educating us about like what this decompression period could look like and how long it could last, and that is normal for him. So that actually took our anxiety down a bit because we weren't sure if we were doing something wrong. We weren't sure if he was depressed because the dog that was there is no longer there.
Mhm.
Um, so that helped a lot. And Chelsey, you even said one time he will tell you when he's ready for more. And the day we started seeing that happen, we were like, "Oh my gosh, he's doing it." Like he instead of eating his meal and going straight back to lay in his bed, he started like wandering around the house and kind of looking at us like, "What's next, guys?" And we were like, "Oh my gosh, he's like emotionally and energetically like he's ready for a little bit more to happen." And so but that took like 5 months. It was a long
Mhm.
decompression period for him. So, like I said, he wasn't doing anything bad or wrong during that time. He was just really shut down and we were having to be really patient. And we wanted to do all these like trainings, right? The behaviorists, like, getting them acclimated to domestic environments and things like that. And we just had to go really slow with him because there was only so much bandwidth for him to be,
Mhm.
you know, engaging with new things or having new experiences. He
Yeah.
did get pretty fearful for a while. Anytime he heard like dogs in the neighborhood barking, he would kind of just like go back inside. He just wasn't super um interested in other dogs for a while. But again, that all changed. Like he really started to open up after that 5 months, but it was a long time. Like, I mean, for people
Yeah.
to, bring a dog home and then go, oh, he or she's not really engaging with us for a long time. Like, it was super helpful to have that support and advice during that period of time because we were kind of at a loss. Like, we didn't know if we were doing something wrong. And it was just really helpful to just know to be patient and just let him, because there was a lot going on in his head, right? Like, we think it looks like
Mhm.
nothing is happening, but he's learning what the sound of domestic life is and the smells, and he's learning, like, that the TV isn't scary, and he's learning, you know what I mean? Like, all the things that we take for granted were new to him, so he was just, like, quietly assimilating all of that new information.
Now,
Yeah.
through this, did you know anybody else that had a former research dog, or this was your first exposure and all of your friends with quote unquote normal dogs are
Exactly.
giving you their advice?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. No one else we knew had adopted a dog with this kind of history. So yeah, having Chelsea's support, honestly, like having like set meetings and we would like make notes to talk about things that we were observing or, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Like that kind of stuff was really helpful support during that time because we just didn't know how long it would last. And it's hard to have faith that it's gonna change when you don't like, you've never seen anything else come out of that dog before, so you're just like, I
Mhm.
mean, we hope it gets better. We're really hopeful, but we haven't seen a change, and then, like I said, it was just about at the 5-month mark, all of a sudden, he was he was ready to see more things or do more things. It was pretty remarkable.
What's
Angela,
interesting Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Sorry, Chelsea.
I was gonna
Can
say what's interesting about our work together is we would meet, I think, I don't know if it was like once every 2, once every 3 weeks, and we talked a lot. And when I work with adopters or fosters, there's consulting, there's behavior training, and then there's management things. And a lot of our work together was just kind of hearing where we are, making tiny little adjustments, giving some insight of what's happening. We didn't do a lot of heavy behavior work because he
Mhm.
wasn't ready for it.
Mhm.
And that's hard for you, I would imagine, because you're not seeing that progress. And behavior work takes time anyway, but to feel like you are just in the weeds working hard at this every single day and not seeing progress, but you still showed up for him every single day. And when things kind of felt defeating a little bit, we had a conversation, and I feel like you really, really gave this dog all the time that he needs. even if, again, like it's emotionally taxing on you. And the timeline that we give to people was extremely longer for you. So I just want to commend you on, putting in work with a very difficult dog and not having that satisfaction of seeing it come to fruition until a long time after you got him. I think that's just incredible.
Good dog
Yeah.
mom.
Good
Thank
dog
you.
mom. I know. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Angelique,
yeah,
sorry,
sorry,
go
Lori, go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm so excited to hear this. Apologies. I just want to know that was there a moment that what was your tearjerker moment, like your tears of joy? Was there a moment in time that he either picked up a toy or he jumped up and snuggled with you? Was there a moment that it just hit you in the heart where it was just an overwhelming transformation, or you realized that you were there or somewhere in the
Right. Yeah.
process?
I think there have been a number of them. Unfortunately, he still doesn't play. Like, I have a basket full of toys he has zero interest in. And I think someday, when I'm in a different location and a second dog is possible, I think a second dog might help, like, teach him to play. But yeah, he doesn't play with toys. I have started using kind of a slow feeder puzzle where the pieces move around and he has to like actively move them. And he's actually starting to get excited and play with that, so that was encouraging for me. But, he couldn't be on, a leash or, be in the harness. He would his fear response is freezing, so he just freezes, literally in whatever position he was in when you put the thing on him. So if he was sitting, he won't stand. If he's standing, he won't sit or walk, like, he just freezes and then stress drools. And
Mm.
so, we had a fenced backyard. He could go outside to go potty and things like that, but he could not go on a walk because I couldn't put him on a leash or put him in a harness. And so a lot of the work that we were doing with Chelsey during that time was getting him to accept those things and start to move around. And so I think that when I finally started to see some movement, we had put our house up for sale at the time. And so when we had some scheduled showings, we would take him to a nearby park and we would just put a blanket on the grass and he would just sit there and usually drool the whole time. But then one day he just walked around, like, did a little figure eight off the blanket and came back and sniffed around in the grass and he had the harness on and he still moved around a little bit. And so he just started to, like consistently I would give him opportunities and just be really patient. And, eventually his interest in the world around him like pushed him out of his little rut basically. Like he was willing to
Mhm,
like start to
mhm.
move around. And now he's fine. I mean, like I harness him every day and we do like 2 to 3 miles a day at the park and stuff like that and he loves exploring. It's his favorite thing, but it took a long
Amazing.
time. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
and I mean, honestly, even just like seeing the tail wags because he started
Mhm.
out with the tucked fear tail, like tucked under his body all
Yes.
the time.
Yeah.
And just the first time you see, like, the little low wag and then the high wag, and even nowadays, like, watching him, his tail's always up in the air, like, full, beagle mode of sniffing with the tail up, and I love watching that. That gives me so much satisfaction just watching him, be a beagle.
Mhm.
Be a beagle, exactly.
There's something that I remember that to me was a really big thing that happened, and you may agree with me. I say sometimes, when I started this work, there wasn't a lot of, people out there who were working with these dogs behaviorally, and adopters didn't know what to do. And the phrase I always use is adopters didn't know what to do when there's a dog who won't eat and won't play and won't come anywhere near them. And that was Oliver a little bit, right? And I remember one of our sessions, you told me that Oliver, you felt like you were really micromanaging everything he needed. You were almost caretaking somebody who couldn't take care of themselves, which is, obviously we do that with dogs, but there was one point that you came to me and told me he's starting to ask you for things. He's starting to ask you almost like he's asking you questions or he's interested in, learning about you or asking you for help on certain things. And that was a really big thing for me because he trusted you and he knew
Mhm.
you were there to take care of him versus just being in this learned helpless state and just having someone care for him. He was almost like, "Hey mom, can we go potty?" And
Yeah.
I think that was huge.
Yeah, and now, like, when a big scary truck goes by and we're on the sidewalk and he gets scared, he looks at me, like, he's like, "Are we okay?" And that always, like, kind of warms my heart too, because I think you know who to look to make sure that you feel safe. Like, something scary
Mhm.
happens, and instead of just totally cowering, his resilience is amazing. Like, he gets scared, sometimes I do a little, like, chest touch, like, rubbing him and stuff, that seems to calm him a lot. But any kind of, like, small reassurance, and he bounces right back, like, and seeing those, like, that growth and resiliency is incredibly rewarding.
He sounds like such an amazing little dog now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm It's a totally different dog than I knew, even when I was working with him. So,
Angelique, how do you when you look back on those early days and the fact that you had mentioned it took 5 months from to see any sort of real progress, that's the
Mhm.
time it took for him to decompress and then keep decompressing as time went on. What do you think you learned about yourself through that? I know that some people will say, "Oh my gosh, I didn't have patience in the beginning," or "Really, this has taught me so much about dogs," etcetera. How do you when you look back at it, what does that look like for you?
So I grew up with animals my whole life. I trained horses, and we always had pets in the house and things like that. But it sort of unlocked a completely different level of patience and not just patience in the telling myself to attenuate my expectations kind of patience, like, just very open, loving patience. Like, I understand that he had a lot of difficulty and that he's still discovering a world that he wasn't given access to, He didn't have a normal, like, puppy to dog trajectory. And so it has given me a level of patience that I didn't even have in the past with other pets that I'd had, if that makes sense. Like,
It
it's taught
does,
me,
yeah.
yeah, a level of just openness and I think a little bit of, like, faith too, like, he'll get there. Because other people can still see him act really scared and they're like, "Oh, he's scared." I'm like, "He's fine." He has given me this confidence of, like, he'll get there, he's fine. And he like I said, he's a ton braver than he was before, but he's a skittish little dog, and, like, um it doesn't gut wrench me the same way because I was, like, to Chelsea's point, trying to curate a perfect environment for him, and I couldn't do that because, we live in Denver and there are city noises and there's trash trucks and there's other dogs and there's kids screaming, and, I was really afraid that I couldn't, like, make a perfect enough environment for his little nervous system. And, she was really good about saying, like, "That's not what he needs. He needs to learn how to live in the world that he's in." And so
Yeah.
now that I have seen enough little, like, little miraculous moments of him doing that, it's given me this, like, quiet, confident patience of, like, I know he can get through it. Even if it's gonna take him a little longer or whatever, he can get through it.
And I think
yeah.
they feel that confidence. That's just such an incredible way of putting it. It's almost like the dogs in our lives we bounce off each other. And so
Mhm.
I would imagine that he felt your confidence, for lack of a better way of putting it. And then you two would just be moving through his journey together, is
Mhm.
how I see it when you're explaining it. You explain it so well.
Oh, thank you. When I became less, like type A, like, just, like, hyper controlling about trying to make everything perfect, and it was putting a lot of stress on me too.
Mhm.
He's had some, like, GI issues throughout his, like, decompression period and his stuff, and they're definitely stress related. We've been to the vet, like, on multiple occasions to talk about it. It's all stress related. Um, as my stress has decreased, and I've like developed that kind of quiet patience and confidence about him. Almost all of his GI issues have gone away. So I think that a lot of he was obviously feeling his own stress, but I think he was really feeling my stress too. And a lot of my stress was just this like hyper attention to trying to make everything perfect. And when I stopped doing that and started to like just focus on me also staying calm, it has made a huge difference in how like how he physically feels day to day. You can tell
Mhm.
his GI issues have basically gone away.
Mhm.
And there is no perfect environment.
Mhm.
They're always
Right.
going to have to decompress. They have come from not living in any sort of place where there's choice or freedom. So no matter where, eh, whether they're in the country, what you would maybe have thought, Angelique, was a calmer situation than
That's what I
in a
thought.
city or right?
Exactly, he needs to go
That
live on a farm
he needs
somewhere
to go live on
quiet.
the farm, right, but a train's gonna go by or,
Mhm.
something's gonna there's no perfect environment, and so I think it's just again, I think you describe it perfectly when you let go of your expectations and
Mhm.
met him where he was and just moved ahead with him, it changed.
And people
Well,
who
what's
know
interest
him oh, sorry, Chelsea, I was just gonna
Go
say,
ahead.
people who know him call him a little miracle dog because they saw what he was
Mm.
like before, and then they see him
Yeah.
now, and, like, if a friend comes with me on a walk or something like that, and they haven't seen him in a while, and now he's this little, like, badass city dog that knows how to cross, like, busy crosswalk streets with, like, cars everywhere, and he doesn't cower, and he doesn't get scared, and it's pretty amazing to see how, like, blossomed and resilient he's become.
I mean, that's how I feel about him and you also.
Yeah, and you also, I think
Yeah. It's a
probably
tough dog.
that's a tough run and just
Mhm.
even, working with Hunter and moving through that, but I think just as you said it, I think don't you guys love that we'll have to use the clip somewhere that says "Badass City Dog"?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's gonna be the title of the
That's
episode.
gonna be the title of the episode. I was thinking the same thing,
Amazing.
John. That's just so awesome. So
So,
awesome.
Angelique, here's my probing question for you. After everything you've been through and all of the work put in, and full well knowing that there's always gonna be a little way to go, would you recommend adopting a research animal to anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, oh god, how to say it? So it's been incredibly rewarding and it's taught me a lot. I do think that people should be prepared for how different it's gonna be than even adopting a dog at a shelter for the most part, right?
Mhm.
It's just a different experience, and the education and the support and all that stuff really helps, but I think it's important for people to just be realistic. Like, it took and I would do it again, actually, like, when I get to a place where I can, accommodate a second dog and he's ready for a buddy and stuff like that, I would do it again, but also because I know so much more now than I did at the time, and so I would never discourage anyone from doing it. I think it's a great thing to do. I just think that people have to really understand that it's different, right? It's a different experience, and just be ready for it to take longer, right? And for the challenges to maybe be a little different than what you might have expected with previous pets.
So,
Mhm.
how much of this experience would you say is, like your standard academic education compared to experiential education with actually having the dog in the house and going through the motions?
I mean, yeah, the best learning is doing, right? But
For
the
some people.
yeah, right. But for me, having a little bit more guidance and just a little bit better view of the long distance, because when you're just in it day to day and you don't completely understand their behavior or where they're at kind of cognitively and emotionally, not I think that piece of it, the support and the education around that stuff was really important for me because it gave me that longer view of like, "Oh, this is how it is now. This is how it is today. This is not how it's always going to be." And watching him develop once he got out of that decompression period, that built a lot of confidence because, like, every week I was seeing growth, right? And there's the occasional backslide, and Chelsea's, helped me kind of be expectant of those happening sometimes so it didn't feel scary, and it's like he could do something one day and he couldn't do it the next day. He has a hard time jumping over, like, the metal, kinda drainage grates that can,
Mm.
like, be in the sidewalk. Like,
Right.
I don't know if it's the glare or whatever, he just doesn't like them. And so sometimes he jumps over them with ease, and other days he gets kinda stuck on that, and I don't feel like a backslide means anything scary or permanent. Like, I know that it just, it ebbs and flows, and it's gonna do that. But the education helped prepare me for all of that so that I didn't panic every time, he
Mhm.
showed a resistance to something that wasn't scary before, and then I think something really bad has maybe happened, but because I got that support and the education, it helped calm me through those fluctuations with him. So, yeah, I don't know if I would for me, I feel like the way I am and the way I'm built, like, the education and the support piece of it helped me profoundly, like, to navigate all the ups and downs with it. Just to know
Mhm.
what to expect and to have that little sense of reassurance that I wasn't doing anything wrong. He
Mhm.
wasn't backsliding because I messed up. It's just part of the journey.
Mhm. I think that's so important to say because a lot of people go through this journey similarly to you in the beginning where they know this is a big deal and they try to do everything that they can perfectly to help this dog. And the intentions are correct. Like we do want to decompress. We do want to keep things quieter. We don't want to take them out. We absolutely want to do all of these things. But there is a point where, and obviously we have had this conversation. uh, If he were to go to an environment where there was none of that, he would have plateaued. Like
Mhm.
stress and change build resilience. So your lifestyle is not extremely stressful, right? And he can get through it. Yes, it will take him a while. Dogs vary at different ages, but completely eliminating all of the triggers, completely eliminating everything that is scary and never asking him to do these things would have kept him where he was. So understanding that, yeah, even if you do something wrong, even if there is a backslide, like that's okay. That builds resilience. He will bounce back and he will get better at bouncing back every single time. And that I can see that and you see now. And I think a lot of people start out, like I said, like you in the beginning, where we know this dog is fragile and we don't want to break him.
Mhm.
So it's this fine line of you're not going to break him, but also don't break him.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's a hard balance to have.
And we don't wanna
Yeah.
bubble wrap them. We're not bubble
Exactly.
wrapping
Mhm.
them. We want them to the whole goal for everyone is so that they can be dogs and they can
Mhm.
enjoy the world around them as dogs.
Mhm.
And they just have to just as you said, Angelique, the best way to learn is to do. They
Mhm.
have to go
But
through it.
also but also what's so good about you, again, I'm just talking how great you are because I think you are great, but um we wanna take them out. We want them to be dogs, but we have to wait till they're ready, and for
Absolutely.
you, I can imagine it was impatient a little bit because, "Okay, Chelsea, you said wait until he decompresses. It's been a month." Like, what can I do? How much can I push him? So there's this balance of wanting to push him to be more brave, but not doing it till he's ready, and you
Yeah.
did a really good job, and, I mean, it took you 5 months, but now, like you said, you were able to take him out and do all these different things, and if you would have done that at the beginning, he would have been so overloaded with information that his brain wouldn't have, filed it, is how I say it. His little file system would have been overflowed, and he wouldn't have been able to get through it, so it's hard.
It's hard, and it ultimately
Mhm.
would have taken longer.
Yeah.
is what we
Right.
see when they get pushed a little bit or,
Mhm.
people decide that they want to do training a little earlier. And what by training, I mean where it's obedience training. These dogs are not ready for obedience training. They haven't even
We
figured
barely
out
did any.
they're in the
We
world,
No.
right?
I mean, I
Right?
think we I think we did place because we wanted him to feel I think he fell off the couch one time and so or something, he wouldn't go on the couch, and so we're like, "Well, let's get him a place so he can go, lay in his little bed." I think that's, like, the only obedience that we did.
Yeah, I taught him
Very
to
good.
sit recently, and I was, like, so proud of myself for teaching him, like, our
Yeah.
That's
commands,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
'cause it's
Yeah.
nothing I'd spent real time on before, and I was like, "Oh, look, he learned how to sit. That's great."
Mhm. Do
That's
you
awesome.
see videos online, probably is where you would see them most, of dogs, any dogs, even not specifically research dogs, but they come home and they are happy and they are running around and they are living the easy life. Does that make you feel, I guess, how does that make you feel knowing that your journey was completely different than that?
It's still hard sometimes because I'll see the dogs, like, playing with toys and things like that. And I was like, he still doesn't do some like normal, especially like beagle type ways of playing and stuff. He just like doesn't do some of those like really typical things. He's also incredibly quiet. Like people see that he's a beagle and they're like, oh, does he make a lot of noise? And our previous beagle did. He's very vocal. And so I know what they're talking about. But he doesn't. He's very quiet. And so sometimes I think, maybe a second dog will, like, teach him to find his voice and things like that, but, yeah, it's still hard sometimes to see, like, I don't know that he'll never do some of those things, but he may never, right? Like, there are certain things that just
Mhm.
might miss him, right? But I get to see him be so happy in the things that he does do. It gives me a lot of reassurance that I mean, he's a completely different dog today than he was a year ago. So a year from now, I don't know what he might be like, right? He might be much more playful. He might howl. He might do all those things. Who knows? But even if he is kind of where he's at now, he has a life filled with all kinds of pleasures, right? Like he's very food motivated. He gets super excited to go on his walks. He loves to meet dogs. He loves to explore. We have this big city park. Excuse me, with like a big lake and long trails and stuff. And he absolutely loves it. It's his favorite thing. Like driving there, he's like bouncing around in the back seat, just so excited because he knows where we're going. So I just get to see so much happiness in him that even if he never completely acts like exactly the way like our previous beagle did or the way we see in videos on, like social media or whatever, it's still like kind of okay with me because he's like a great little companion. He's super sweet and he's affectionate. He comes to me for affection now, which was, another kind of milestone moment of like looking to be touched as opposed to tolerating being touched. It was a big deal.
Mhm.
So I see him do so many, like, things where I can tell he's happy and he has a lot of pleasure in his life. So that is super encouraging for me.
You saying how quiet he is reminded me of my wife and I just adopted, our 3rd beagle that is in the house, and she's just this little tiny thing, and she didn't make a peep for the longest time. And my wife was out someplace, and I was sitting in my home office trying to get some work done, and all of a sudden, I heard a dog noise in the other room that I had never heard before. It wasn't one of our dogs, and I went racing out of the office because it sounded horrible, and here was this little 12-pound beagle screaming at the dishwasher as it went into a different cycle, and she would not let up, and she did it long enough, I was able to pull out my phone and capture a video and send it to my wife and tell her she found her voice today, and she hasn't stopped since.
That's awesome,
She's a
though. I
screamer
love
now,
that.
John. Yeah, she's
She is for sure.
Angelique, I feel that one day you might see Oliver teaching the new dog the ropes.
Yeah,
Mm.
possibly. I mean, he does make noises. Like he doesn't howl the way or bay the way you expect, beagle noises, but he obviously, like I said, is very food motivated. And one day I was eating something and ignoring him, and it must have been something that smelled like familiar, that he was excited about. And so he started making this little like purring growl. It sounds like a Chewbacca noise. I'd never heard our other dog make this noise, but this
Can
is
you
the
make the
noise.
noise for us?
It's like this, like kind of noise, almost like
Yeah.
a little
Oh,
purr growl sound. It's so cute, and so, I
Mhm.
get excited when he starts to find, little ways to use his voice, because they're new sounds that I hadn't heard before, and
Mhm.
that just came up a couple weeks ago.
I love that. Um, what else? What do I have? Mhm. What do you mm, what do you think that a foster or adopter who has a dog right now who is feeling overwhelmed because their dog is very shut down or it seems like this is going to be a lot of work, what do you wish that you could tell them or even tell yourself when this first started?
When it first started, um I think that honestly, the time frame expectation was helpful to me because I am the kind of just personality that just wants things to I just want to fix things. I just want them to be fixed now kind of thing. And it's like if there's something I can be doing to make it better, let me know what I can do to fix it. And so this is the timeline you're on. It's long and it does, that helped settle my just tendency to want to fix or meddle or, adjust and things like that. Um, it's that feeling like when you fly international, right? Versus you're on a short flight, it's like settle in because you're going to be doing this for a
Mhm.
while. Like this is going to be 7 hours, not two. And it's like that different mindset feeling of this isn't going to change overnight. And this is just going to how it's going to feel for a time. That helped me a lot, just knowing that the, kind of long-term arc of it, and that you'll get to see, Chelsea's really good about making people identify and focus on those little wins because 'cause you'll forget them, and I forget them now too. There are things that he's so good about now that I forgot he used to struggle with it, right? Thresholds are a really common thing
Like
that a
riding in the
lot.
car?
Oh, yeah, the
You
car. He
just said
loves the car.
he goes to the park. He hated the car.
Mhm. Yeah, every time we'd have to
Mhm.
put him in the car for, a house showing, it was just again, it was the freeze and the stress drool the whole time and stuff, and now he loves it. So, yeah, it's that kind of settling in for the long haul and knowing that, you're gonna get those, really great progress and wins, and it's good to focus on those because you wanna remember them, but that it's the long game, not the short game.
Do you feel like that's translated into other parts of your life? That settle into this, I can't fix everything right now mentality.
Yeah, I
Because I
think.
also have that. So I'm asking
Yes,
for
so
advice.
do I.
Yeah, no, I do. I think people that have a perfectionist nature, it's like anything you think is wrong or out of place, you want to fix it now. And so that has, I mean, the
It's
kind of
true.
patience and the lack of focus on or obsession around time, like how long has it been? How long have we been doing this? I just don't worry about that the same way as I did before. And it has helped in other parts of my life too, with work or long-term planning and different things like that. It has helped settle me in other ways just because of the kind of daily practice of not trying to perfect everything with him all the time. Yeah.
So the moral
Amazing.
of the story is if you are a perfectionist or a type A personality, please get your applications in to the Beagle Alliance and Kindness Ranch.
And buckle up.
And
Yeah.
buckle up.
and
It's gonna be
buckle
a
up
long
for sure.
ride.
We will be
Yeah.
there with you, but
Yes.
that is how you will
Yep.
transform by having a former research dog.
Mhm.
They help us grow while we help them grow.
Mhm.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah, and I think the network is really helpful too, seeing other people and being able to communicate and, the Kindness Ranch, there's, the Facebook group, and there's, different things that
Mhm.
people who have adopted have done to connect with each other, and I think just seeing, how people are doing the wins and the struggles and people talking about that stuff, it's really nice because you don't feel isolated because obviously it is a different experience than like getting a dog from a puppy or, even a lot of times a shelter dog. Like this is a kind of different path. And so it's nice to see the community of people kind of talking about their experiences with their dogs too.
Mhm.
I am just so appreciative of your stamina and your fortitude to stick
Me
with it
too.
and see this
Agreed.
through. You've done wonderful things for your dog and yourself from the sounds of it. And
Mhm.
I want to say thank you for putting in the time and
Mhm.
seeing it through.
Me
Yeah,
too.
me
Thank
too.
you.
Big time. Big time.
Yeah, he's so sweet and so darling. Like he's such a gentle soul. And so I've just always kind of felt like trying to do my best for him because he's just the sweetest little creature.
Well, I will
Mhm.
say that he definitely chose the right person.
Me too. He needed someone who's patient
He
and
chose the right person.
understood him and wanted to understand him. I think
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
part of this too is yes, patience is great. Yes, love is great, but really understanding the dog and what's going on in their head and what's going on in your head and adjusting as you go. It's just so important because
Mhm.
there is, as you know, you could love him all day long and you could be patient all day long. But you when you understand him more and when you can communicate with him more, it makes everything easier.
Yep.
So, Chelsea, I
Agree.
have a question for you.
Okay.
My social media feed has been really busy lately with a lot of dogs coming out of hoarding situations, horrific abuse cases, even flooding, and all kinds of other traumas that dogs experience. Based off of everything that Angelique has experienced with her dog, how much of that decompression and trauma work do you think equates to anybody looking for either a former research beagle or another dog coming out of one of those horrific situations?
How much
How much is
how aligned are
transferable?
they?
Yeah. How much of
Mm,
the patience and work is transferable between the two? Or
yeah,
are they pretty unique amongst themselves?
that's a good question. Um, I've been working in dog behavior for a decade now, and I'll be honest, when I first started working with research dogs, I had to learn a lot of different things and trauma rewires the brain, and trauma can be one big event, like a big flood or a big displacement.
Mhm.
But trauma can also be anything that is too much or too much for too long or not enough for too long. And the variance of the type of trauma is obviously going to have the variance of what has been done to the brain and the nervous system. So, if you know behavior work, that's great, but it's completely different than trauma work. And what's different about research beagle trauma is their lineage is full of that. So their parents and their grandparents were all bred for the same situation. So just like in humans, when a pregnant woman is stressed, that gets passed down to the baby and obviously the male equivalent. So there's that. There's also complete isolation. They don't have any experience with the outside world whatsoever. They don't know what outside is. They don't know grass or sun or anything like that. There's a severe lack of choice in the matter. They're not willing, and I think Angelique can, back me up on this. Of sometimes there's just I don't want to, I don't care, I don't want to. Nothing I do matters, and so it's very very hard to get them motivated. You can't convince them to do anything. So I guess to answer your question, trauma itself is transferable, but the specific nuances of dogs in research is very, very specific. And knowing what they have been through, what works, what doesn't work, I think is super helpful for me to work with these dogs. Again, even having 10 years of training in working with dogs with trauma.
So, do you think trauma's become kind of like an overly generalized term for when it comes to what research beagles are facing?
I think that yes and no. I think it's trauma. I think it's more than trauma. I think trauma is a big general word, yes, and they do have trauma, but um, there's so much more than that. Yeah. Yep.
I
Okay.
agree. I
Yeah.
mean, we see PTSD. I think it
Mhm.
maybe can't be simplified to just that. Certainly,
Yeah.
it's a long term, and I do believe that because they are bred into testing, that a lot of what is going on with them psychologically is now a part of their
It's in
cellular
them.
DNA. It becomes a part of the cellular DNA, and you know, it's kind of like getting the opportunity to place them into homes is like stopping the cycle,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
then they have an opportunity to change the narrative and really transform in ways that probably we don't even see. We
Mhm.
see the outward experience of what's going on, but there's so much there, and it just goes to show how really truly resilient they are, how brave and courageous they are. They trust the very species who harmed them eventually. And certainly when we think it may take time, when you really think about how long some of these dogs have spent in a laboratory, John, we've gotten dogs that, have been 8 and 9 years old.
Mhm.
And so when we look at the few months or the years sometimes that it takes, and sometimes it takes 3 years for a dog to even howl, that's still a
Mhm.
pretty good stats there considering that they've been in a facility for so long,
Well, let's
and
not forget that they can become badass city dogs.
They
that's right.
absolutely can.
That's
Yeah.
right. That is exactly it. That's
I think there's
exactly it.
also a nuance in where they came from too. I know that I can work with a group of dogs and I can work with another group of dogs. And yes, they all have different personality traits and different behavior, good and bad behavior, but what facility they were at also
Mhm.
matters, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah, a hoarding case you could say is very similar, but there are also very, very specific things that they went through for a long amount of time that you are not going to replicate anywhere else from any other type of dog from a bad situation.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Angelique, do you have anything that you would like to offer in advice or personal insight to anybody that may be listening that's considering bringing in one of these dogs into their home?
Yeah, I would say one thing that I found really encouraging with Oliver, and that I would encourage anyone else when you were talking about the trauma. Chelsey and I talked a lot about the learned helplessness kind of dynamic where they just don't even know what to ask for or what they want, and they definitely are not going to try, and it's a little hard sometimes to like push them to try for something.
Mhm.
That behavior, like, like, watching that him kind of grow out of that or develop out of that is a big thing that I look for, and so sometimes I feel like maybe I'm encouraging bad behavior a little bit, but, like, beagles are willful little animals,
Yep,
and
do
they're
it.
sassy, and they're food motivated, and things like that, so when I now see, because he had a lot of, like, kind of claustrophobia fears, confinement fear, he will get himself wedged into this tiny little corner of the kitchen if he thinks I'm making something that he wants, or he'll like stand up on his like hind legs so that he can try to see, what's on the counter if he's excited about what I'm making. Or like I'll leave the back door open and he just goes out on his own and sits on the couch in the sunshine because he likes to sunbathe, and I get so excited every time I see him make choices and, like, have, like, an opinion or, like, a motivation for himself about what he wants, like, that I think is one thing I would encourage people to, like, look for when they have one of these dogs, and to also, like, kind of celebrate and encourage is when they start to make their own choices. It's really
Yeah.
it's a slower process, I think, because that is grounded in some of their trauma, but when they start to grow out of that, it's really beautiful.
When you
Yeah.
talk about those little victories, it makes me wonder how many pictures on your camera roll are of your dog.
Mm, I wish I had more, honestly, because sometimes there are just these quick little moments, and I'd like, "Oh, I wish I
Mhm.
coulda captured that," but yeah, anytime I see him, like, go, like, sit on the couch on his own and not just following me from room to room, things like that, like, making choices, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you said about him doing bad behaviors, quote
Yeah.
unquote bad behaviors, like naughty dog behaviors. I love when I see that and I love when I hear that because I'm like, that's a real dog thing. Like
Yeah,
real dogs do that.
Absolutely.
Like
right.
I love when research dogs do that because that means they're coming out of
Mhm.
this shell. And I think it's totally fine to not maybe encourage, but it's totally fine to let them do some of those things, because
Accept it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. Like that's a dog,
Yeah.
if he's begging for food, fine.
And beagles
Who
are crafty.
cares?
They're gonna
They
jump up on
are.
your tail. They're gonna
Yeah.
do those witty,
Yeah.
crafty
And
little
There's
yeah.
things that they
there's
do.
my dog's bad behavior behind me
Yeah,
in
there
their
you
little puddle
go.
right
There
back
you
there.
go.
Man.
Angelique, thank you so much for all of this and just sharing, even the vulnerable moments. I want to ask you, do you have any what is your question for us? Do you have a question that might pop in your head for
Oh, I didn't
us?
think about that. But yeah, have you guys heard stories? Because you've obviously talked to lots and lots of people that are doing this over long periods of time. Have you heard stories, like you said, about a dog, like maybe finding its voice 3 years in or suddenly playing with
Yes.
toys like years down the road,
We're
you know?
Gosh, yes.
yes, we're about to do our next one that we're doing today. This dog didn't use his voice at all, and now he has a special thing with his adopter where they just howl and howl and howl and howl all the time. Um but yeah, I mean, we
If
hear
I
we hear a lot,
tried it,
especially playing.
we had
Yeah.
some sirens in the background and I kind of howled at him
Uh-huh.
with the sirens to be like, try to encourage him to
Yeah.
do it. And he just looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it might come, and I
Mhm.
would not lose hope because
Mhm.
truly, I have had people send me videos 3
Mhm.
years later, 2
Yep.
years later with them playing with a toy for the very
Yep.
first time,
That's
howling at
great.
something out the window. So, absolutely, it is entirely possible.
Well, that's
Yeah,
good
I
to know.
agree. I've
Yeah.
worked with people. I've worked with people where a year after I worked with them, and they had had their dog for years before that, have sent me videos, and it's them creeping around the corner, taking a video of their dog playing with a toy on
Exactly.
their own. So it does come, and as
That's
you know,
every
if
night
he,
at my house.
yeah, if that's just not his jam, that's not his jam. That's totally okay.
Yeah,
But I think there is hope for some of these things to continue coming. Like you said,
absolutely.
a year ago he was a completely different dog. So where's he going to be
Right.
a year from now, 2 years
Yep,
from now?
Right.
Right?
exactly.
He had a big year. He had a
Yeah.
Yeah,
really big year.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think you'll see it. I think you'll see it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is when I first got to Kindness Ranch. We had this adopter that filled out an application, and they were talking about how they love this active outdoor lifestyle. They love going for hikes in the Rockies, and they linked to their Instagram, and they're this family that just absolutely, I don't think they ever spent any time indoors. And we had a dog that I thought would be an absolutely perfect fit for him. And they got here, and of course, they fell in love with the most shy and withdrawn dog that we had on the property.
Mhm.
And I told them, I said, I don't think this dog is a good fit for you, but they were insistent, and they followed through. They told me that they had to have this dog. And I just saw them back in February. And this dog, his name is Doug, D-U-G,
Mhm.
and he is a badass city dog, completely off leash, never leaves their side. he goes for hikes in Estes Park with them. They're all over the place. He has his own Instagram, and it took him a good long time to get there, but they followed through. They did everything they could to make sure that Doug was happy. And I have to say, I felt like I wasn't serving my dogs well enough when I saw this guy. He's just amazing.
Yeah,
That's a great story.
we're going up to the mountains at the end of next month. For the first time, he's going to learn some hiking because we've gotten really good with going on the park trails and things like that. And I ended up taking him one morning to kind of inadvertently to a different park that he'd never been at before, and it was really busy and dogs everywhere. And he handled it beautifully. He was happy the whole time. It was great. So I was like, he's ready.
Right on.
So we're going. I rented a cabin, and we're going up for a week at the end of the month to like teach him how to hike. I'm pretty excited.
I love
us,
that.
Awesome.
Keep us updated on that.
Yes,
I want to
keep
know
us
how
Yeah.
it goes.
posted.
I think he's
Yes.
gonna love it. So I'm excited.
I love it.
Amazing. I love it. Well, I really, really, really appreciate you coming on. I love your story.
As
I think
do I.
you have done everything right that we ask when people adopt these dogs, and you didn't have the best go at it. You didn't get the luck of the draw, or you did get the luck of the draw. You didn't get the easiest dog in the whole world. So I really appreciate you putting in the work for him every day. I think that's, when I think of somebody rescuing a dog or saving a dog or adopting a dog, a lot of people may think of it's this heroic, big act. I got the dog and now they're mine. I saved them from this situation. But in your case, saving this dog is showing up every single day for a year and moving forward for him. And that to me is the real heroic act. So I really appreciate you coming on and telling our viewers or our listeners this story.
Thank you so
I
much
couldn't
for
have said
having
it
me.
better. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I also want to say that your heroic act extended also to Hunter. And
Yes.
that doesn't always look it doesn't always look the way we think it's going to look, but that was a heroic act too, and that allowed him to end up where he needed to be, and I just really appreciate that.
Thank you. It makes me so happy to know that he's happy. He's such a sweet little dog, and it was
He is,
heartbreaking at
yeah.
the time to have to make that choice because he's a good boy. Like he's a good little dog, and so I'm
Sure.
so happy he's in like the right environment that makes him happy too.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I bet his mama and his little brothers are also very thankful to you.
Absolutely they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all a tight-knit community as well. So
Yeah.
like I said earlier, as a group, we're all able to put our heads together and find solutions to these things. And
Yeah.
it just takes somebody like you being brave enough to make the right decision for the dog. And we're grateful for that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It was really nice to be able
Yes.
to talk about all of his stuff. Sometimes
Absolutely.
I forget, right? It's a long timeline and you forget
Mhm.
about all their little steps and progress. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. I went back and read all of our notes from our sessions, and I'm like, man, I can't believe he used to do that or he used to do that. And now to hear where he is
This.
now is just, it's great.
And now he's
Yeah.
going hiking, so
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Now he's going to the
Yeah.
mountains. Yeah.
That's awesome.
This episode is proof that you don't need to have a former research animal in your house to learn something. We've got great insight into dogs experiencing trauma, PTSD, and the challenges of what it takes to welcome a former research dog into your home. Thank you to everybody that is supporting us and listening. You can find us and follow all of our socials at beyondthelab.dog. There you will find links to Keeper and Kin, the Beagle Alliance, and of course, Kindness Ranch. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Dogs Beyond the Lab. For more, including comments, feedback, and ways to get in touch with our hosts, go to beyondthelab.dog.
Produced and distributed by the Sound Off Media Company.